And joining me for a look at what's playing out on the market scene at midday is Odwa Magwentshu from Momentum Securities. Odwa, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. So today marks the beginning of the second quarter, and while we are seeing a recovery, markets really volatile over the first quarter due to uncertainty around President Trump's trade policies. U.S. markets ending the quarter in the red, the dollar flirting with its worst level since the start of 2008, and gold delivering its best quarterly performance in close to 40 years. And I guess that's just telling of the kind of environment we're in.
Yeah, 100%. A lot has changed in 2024, and besides, the sell-off of the tech stocks, which was initiated or started with DeepSeek. As you rightfully said, right now there's a lot of anxiety or uncertainty with regards to the tariffs, which are coming soon or tomorrow rather. And it's the nature of the tariffs which is an issue. We are not sure whether or not we're going to be having more aggressive tariffs because, for example, in China, there's now negotiations where they could lower the tariffs in China in terms of getting a stake in TikTok, as was the plan earlier in the year. So there's that on one front. And also, with regards to the uncertainty, we thought that there could be friends or people who are lucky from the barrage of tariffs. Unfortunately, even the EU and UK are being affected at this point, which is already suffering with their automakers on that front. And this is why it's also giving them a bit of a headache.
Interestingly, though, Odwa, local markets are faring really, really well. Just over the past 3 months, the all shares up 5.4%. What's been, boosting the resilience on the local front?
With our particular market, well, it's the commodity cycle. We are a commodity producer, and the cycle seems to be turning to the upside. And quite a number of things have been affected to that. Number one is everyone's defense spending going up, meaning that they're going to need more minerals. That's where we are anticipating to benefit from that, number one. Number two is we were at very low markets. Very low base. If you look at the platinum miners, and they have been having a nice strong rally. And then thirdly, as you alluded to earlier, the gold price has just been in a right angle to the upside, and right now we are, our gold miners also benefiting from that.
And those gold prices sitting at, I think, over 3,000 at the moment, and that, of course, boosting our local gold counters. So, right, tariffs, the word on everyone's mouth as that deadline looms, Odwa. We've been talking about, the possible auto tariffs and the impact that'll have. Recently, President Trump threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russian oil. Initially, we did see the oil price tick up on the back of that, but that not lasting long. Is this something you're eyeing, something to be concerned about?
In terms of the oil prices, there is a bit of cushion for ignoring it a little bit. There isn't much. The supply is already quite high, and we have seen OPEC reducing their production for quite a long time, which hasn't equated to higher oil prices. We also have the United States with their reserves that they depleted about 2 years ago, or used quite a majority of it in order to reduce inflation and also the petrol price in the US. So they still need to, buy more of those oil reserves in order to fill it up. So in terms of sanctions and the such, I think that in the long term, it might not have as much of a effect. We saw even with the sanctions on Russia, it didn't really equate to too much in terms of the oil price going up to a high number. So I think right now, in terms of the oil prices, it just seems like there isn't much to increase the demand or raise the price.
And we talk about D-Day in the US, but we also have D-Day coming up here at home with that parliamentary budget vote taking place tomorrow. And it seems like, the DA and the ANC are still going back and forth about that deal. Talk to me about the kind of implications this would have, or rather if a deal doesn't come through, would have on perhaps the Rand and the JSE.
Most obvious is going to be against the currency itself. Firstly, the introduction of the GNU helped the currency as it gave hope of stability in terms
Yes.
of the market. And it will hopefully then the um economic or company-friendly parties coming into play would then steer the government into getting more expansionary policies produced or introduced. As of yet, that's what the DNC are currently debating the most in this budget speech, and whether or not they will be able to. That's one. On the currency front, if you look at the markets itself, we are, as terms of consumers of the market, we are struggling at this point. We're already counting our cents. We're already going for budget alternatives. And with the VAT increase, not only, it's mainly going to affect the middle class, in my opinion, whereas everything is already expensive, it's going to be much more expensive. We've already gone through a cycle of lifestyle reduction where people moved out and moved into smaller homes, didn't sell their cars as frequently. We didn't buy any more materials, really holding on to our pockets. And that is what could be worse in the next round if the VAT goes up, or they don't make way with that. That could hurt the consumer, which then would lead to lower sales for the counters on the JSE. So the importance of the budget tomorrow is quite important, not only it coming out to show stability,
Yeah.
but also what's in it to alleviate the consumer.
All right, let's just hit pause on that conversation. Before we get to your stock pick, let's reflect on some counters that have found favor with your industry peers.
I think some of this mid-tier South African diversified miners are looking quite attractive. So about a month ago, I recommended the Exara and today's African Rainbow. So if you take the stake they have in Harmony plus the cash they have on the balance sheet, that represents about 70% of the market cap, give or take. So that really means that businesses like us, Mang and so forth, is valued at very low levels. So for us, that doesn't really make sense. And of course, I've got assets in PGMs as well. So it does give you a bit of a call option if PGMs do recover. We're starting to see a little bit of a run there, for example, in the rhodium price. If gold remains strong, then you're getting the rump for incredibly cheap in African Rainbows. So yes, as a result, because of that, and I understand it's lower, not necessarily a highest quality business, and they do have some checkered past when it comes to asset allocation, capital allocation. I think it does represent the best value I've seen in a number of years, and as a result, I'm looking to buy some stock.
Yeah, I'm going with ABSA. I think if you've just looked over the last month, we've certainly seen a bit of an unwind in the, call it SA Inc. basket, where your very strong SA-dominated businesses, whether it's the retail or the banks, they've all come off quite strongly from their recent highs. And you've got to go back to valuation. So just looking at ABSA, I think it's just too cheap. We've got an upcoming dividend that's taking place in April. I think that's about just R7.60-ish per share. So that's worth participating in as we move through the course of the next month. And just fundamentally, I think it's probably one of the cheapest I've seen it in quite some time, just given the recent numbers that they published to the market in terms of what they delivered over the last 12 months and kind of what the prospects look like going forward. So sits on a nice, decent yield, collect the yield, good quality business, cheaper than the other banks. If you look at the other banks as a proxy, they're all kind of at the lower end of their ranges. We saw a nice beat out of Standard Bank that was well received by the market, probably at the expense of ABSA in terms of a bit of selling pressure or readjustment in portfolios. So that would be my stock pick.
So Derek picking ABSA and Alex in the mining sector with African Rainbow Minerals. Just your analysis on those counters, Odwa.
Well, starting with ABSA, as the person said, that they are the cheapest of the banks, and they are, just showing a turnaround in the strategy. We saw in the last numbers that they released. So, I mean, they are some pointers for an upside, and also the appointment of the new CEO should give some positive insight to the business. And then if we look at African Rainbow Mineral rather, they have been struggling. The only thing that I think is also working in their favor is if you look at the prolongment of the opening of the long steel at Eslometo, which takes a lot of the iron ore business. So there could be a turnaround in the business on that front.
All right, Odwa, but that not your any of your stock picks. What are you hanging your hat on today? What are you picking?
Mine is One Invest Gold ETF. It is the Rand Gold tracking ETF, and obviously gold price is so high. It's a nice hedge in anyone's portfolio, and also if there were to be any Rand weaknesses, it also helps you having that in your portfolio, and that's why I say it's a must in anyone's portfolio at these times.
Odwa, thanks so much for your time and taking us through trade at midday. That was Odwa Magwentshu from Momentum Securities.